What is up, everybody? Purple and Gold podcast for Thursday, May 21st. LSU's baseball season comes to an end last night at the SEC tournament in Hoover with a 3-1 loss to Auburn. Coach O is back in the fold, and Will Wade is making friends and influencing people all across the college basketball landscape. A lot to get to. Let's dive right in. So LSU's baseball season does come to an end last night with a 3-1 loss to Auburn. Jake Marciano, Auburn's pitcher, really tied LSU's lineup in knots. LSU did get 2 base runners on in the ninth with 2 dramatic ball 4 ABS challenges by Derek Curiel and Braden Simpson. John Pearson was the go-ahead run at the plate. He had quite an at-bat where he battled and battled and battled, but he grounded out to end the game. We're not going to get into the autopsy of the season here. We will do that in a separate podcast. We've got a lot to get to today. This game, though, and this 2-game stretch in the SEC tournament was a microcosm of LSU's season. The games where they had pitching, they never really seemed to have offense. A lot of the latter part of the season when they had offense, the pitching really let them down. And this is not meant to be an excuse, but the injury bug just never let up on this team. It was Cooper Moore early. It was Kason Evans in the middle. It was Jake Brown late. Then it was, William Schmidt. His back acts up before he can pitch against Oklahoma. Omar Cerna gets hurt in the game, right? Chris Stanfield missed 2 stretches of over, almost 25 games. I know he missed 16 in that first stretch, and then he was in and out of the lineup. John Pearson missed time with a hamstring. Trent Caraway was sick. Again, not an excuse, right? None of the players, I think, would tell you that it was an excuse. And look, I don't think LSU was winning 5 games to win this tournament. But it sure would have been nice if William Schmidt could have made the start like he was supposed to, and you would not have had to use Grant Fontenot, Gavin Guidry, and Devin Sheeran all for, 3+, 2+ innings on night 1. And then it sure would have been nice to have Omar Cerna in the lineup last night when you really needed him. Look, just to look ahead, Derek Curiel and Jake Brown, they're going to be high draft picks. They're going to be gone. Stephen Milam, a lot of people think he'll have a decision to make, and there is some nuance to where Milam might get picked. I think Milam will be picked high enough that he will most likely be gone. I think you'll be building this team around Aaron Beatty, around Cerna, around Mason Braun, assuming you can keep them. You'll need to bring in an influx of talent, obviously. Hopefully, Kason Evans is back. Hopefully, William Schmidt's back. Cooper Moore has already said he'll be back. Hopefully, Marcos Paz stays. Reagan Ricken, Devin Sheeran. And, you sort of will bring in an influx of players, both through the portal, and LSU has a very highly rated recruiting class. We'll see how many of them they can get to campus. And, look, you have some advantages in recruiting and in the transfer portal when your season ends as early as LSU's is. And Jay Johnson in his time at LSU has never had a season end this early, and that's a good thing. We don't want LSU's season to be over before Memorial Day. But that is the reality of it, right? And look, much like when I'm going to talk about Will Wade in a minute, I just want to implore all LSU fans who listen to this podcast, we can bitch and moan about it, or we can do something about it. We're the gold standard of college baseball. That's not a marketing ploy, okay? The Powerhouse is not a marketing ploy. Drive down Nicholson Drive anytime you want and look at the Intimidator. Those 8 national championships aren't going anywhere, and Jay Johnson's not going anywhere. So LSU's going to go out, and Jay and his staff are going to do the very best they can to go out and fix this thing. And we'll be right here to cover it all through the transfer portal cycle And, hopefully I'll be back in the fold on WRBE FM soon, talking about college baseball and the NCAA tournament and all that good stuff. Let's move on to some news that broke during the game last night. Lane Kiffin has hired Ed Orgeron as a special assistant for defense and recruiting. And this was somewhat of a bombshell, making the rounds on ESPN and social media. Dave Neal on the commentary of the baseball game mentioned it. This is going to be big news in the college football world. My initial thoughts on this are great. I look, the way stuff ended with Coach O, and anybody who knows me, I didn't want Coach O to get the job initially. I didn't like the hiring process that got him the job. To his credit, he coached the greatest college football team of all time, the 2019 national champion LSU Tigers, and then he was unable to sustain that. He was unable to, I think, keep his eye on the ball, so to speak, and it ended in very messy fashion. However, Coach O loves Louisiana. Coach O loves LSU. Coach O knows how to coach a defensive line. Coach O can go in every high school in this state and recruit. And if you hire him as a special assistant, he doesn't really have a job. If Coach O comes in and doesn't do the things the way that Lane Kiffin and Billy Glasscock and Verge Osbury want him to do it, then you just part ways. We're not tasking him with any sort of major responsibility. And look, that may be a good thing, and it may free up Coach O to do the sorts of things that he does well. And I think that's the hope, right? And look, if Coach O, I don't want to use the word rehabilitates himself, but if he rehabilitates his reputation here a little bit and Coach O gets a head coaching job at, Louisiana Lafayette in 2 years, great. Like this is a no-lose situation for LSU. It was widely rumored when Lane got the job, people thought Ed Orgeron was going to get a job on the defensive staff, whether that be the D-line coach. Some people even mentioned defensive coordinator. I always thought that was a little bit of a pipe dream. There was no real reporting of any substance about that. But Lane and Ed Orgeron have a decades-long relationship. I'm sure at times in each of their lives and careers, they have helped each other. And so Ed Orgeron is back in the fold and will be a special assistant for defense and recruiting. And again, as I understand the rules now, you can have as many people recruiting off campus as you want, as I understand it. And I would imagine that recruiting the state of Louisiana and then probably recruiting nationally defensive linemen, I would imagine those would be two spots that Ed Orgeron will be heavily involved in. Moving on to Will Wade and the LSU basketball roster. Oh boy. So Will Wade just continues to make friends. I'm being sarcastic here, of course, all over the college basketball world. All of these hypocrites, all of these losers, all of these haters who cover the sport and sort of suck at the teat of all of the blue bloods in this sport, like Tom Izzo and Coach K before he retired and Rick Pitino, and they overlook all of the obvious things that those guys have done over the years and all of the obvious cheating that has gone on in college basketball and the obvious sexual abuse scandals and other dalliances that all of these coaches have had. John Calipari's, run afoul at two schools, right? UMass and Memphis, where they had to take banners down, but we don't care about any of that, right? But Will Wade wants to get a few international guys and a G League guy eligible, and it's Armageddon now. So let's back up. So if some of you don't know, RJ Lewis, who was the 2025 Big East Player of the Year at St. John's, committed and is going to attempt to sign with LSU. RJ Lewis, after the 2025 season, put his name in the NBA draft. He went undrafted. He was later drafted by, I believe, the Celtics and signed a two-way contract. Never played in the G League. Was unable to play due to injury, and wants to come back to college basketball. Now, look, there was a lot of talk last year about Charles Bediako and his court case. He played 58 games in the G League. Baylor had a player who played in the G League, came back and played. We know about the saga of Trinidad Chambliss. You know about Diego Pavia before that. You know about Joey Aguilar, the Tennessee quarterback, who went to court to try to get an extra year and it was shot down. I don't want LSU to game the system to get players eligible. That's not something I am in favor of. RJ Lewis's people, I think, are going to use the 5-for-5 model, which is about to be passed probably in August, where you come out of where you come out of high school or internationally, and you have 5 years to play 5, likely before your 25th birthday. RJ Lewis played 1 year at UMass, 2 years at St. John's, 1 year he was out in the G League. His people are going to argue this would be his 5th year. If he is deemed eligible by the NCAA, great. If he is deemed ineligible and LSU has to take this to court to get some sort of an injunction for him to play, I don't like that. Moving on from him. LSU has international commitments now from a 7-foot Croatian center. He's fine, 19 years old, no problem there. Selu Niang, who was drafted by the Cavaliers, 58th. He's an Italian native. He's been playing in the EuroLeague. He was just a draft and stash. He never played. He should be fine. He's 22, 23 years old. Bryce Desire, who we talked about, a French national, who's been playing in the EuroLeague, 22 years old. He may have a little bit of an eligibility discussion, but he should be fine. And then the other interesting guy was Yam Madar. So Yam Madar is Israeli, playing in the EuroLeague, and he's played Israeli professional basketball. He is 25 years old. He will be 26 in December. He was drafted in the 2020 draft by the Celtics. Never came stateside, never played in the G League, never signed any sort of two-way or NBA contracts. He had to do a year of mandatory military service in the Israeli military. That generally is one of the things that will grant you a waiver, is mandatory military service. And look, getting back to, we'll discuss Madar and Luis more if and when they become eligible. But guys like Jeff Goodman, who I like normally on the Field of 68 podcast, he's a long time covered college basketball. Guys on CBS Sports, a lot of people who cover college basketball on Twitter. The outrage over what Will Wade is doing in building this roster is laughable. It's laughable. You know, Jeff Goodman is railing on the Field of 68 podcast that Will Wade should have never come back to college basketball, and he's making a mockery of this and all of that. And why is he doing this? And it's not all about you and blah, blah, blah. What did he say last year in the middle of the season when Nate Oates and Alabama filed an injunction for Charles Bediako to play for Alabama after he had already played 58 games in the G League? Where was the outrage then? Where was the outrage when Rick Pitino came back to college basketball at both Iona and now at St. John's? And Rick Pitino, we know about his dalliances, and we know about the scandal at Louisville where they were throwing parties in the dorm with prostitutes and everything else, right? Where was the outrage when John Calipari, continued to coach, right, at Kentucky and now at Arkansas? Where's the outrage when, a lot of other international players, 22 and 23 years old, come in and play college basketball? Where was the outrage when Indiana football won the national championship with an average age starter of 24 years old. You know where the outrage was? It didn't exist. Okay? Everybody said, oh, Curt Cignetti went out and got a bunch of grown men. Great. They were all eligible. They were all transfers. And look, if and when the NCAA changes the rule, awesome. Change the rule. I agree that some of this stuff is ridiculous. If Yam Madar, a 26-year-old guy who's played professional basketball for the better part of half a decade, ends up playing for LSU, do I think that's a little ridiculous? Yes. But if he's eligible, what do you want Will Wade to do? Will Wade's job is to win basketball games. Will Wade's job is to go find the best players that LSU can find. Will Wade said on John Rothstein's podcast about 9% of the players in the transfer portal were good enough to play for LSU. So it was a down year in the portal, and he had 0 players. So he had to go out and build a roster somehow, and he's not going to build a roster on 2-star mid-majors. That's not realistic. So we will see how this all shakes out. I believe LSU is going to have a tremendous roster. Whether or not Desire and Madar and Luis are a part of it remains to be seen. We'll be here to cover it for you, and we'll be fired up to do so. Please like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And I had a couple of requests to maybe do a YouTube video about the Tiger Den, my man cave that you see me sitting in every day. So we may do something special with that. I may let my son get involved in that as well. Like and subscribe. Please follow me on X at RobG1124. Always be good to one another. Always boot up. And always, always, always go Tigers. And don't worry about the baseball team. Jay Johnson's going to fix that.